You guys ready to jump in?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Let's go.
So, going to bring the first caller up. It's going to be Joe from South Carolina. Saw a UFO come down and salvaged crash UFO. This caller waited on hold for a long time last week. We didn't get to him, so assured him he would be the first caller tonight. So, Joe, you are on with Jim and Brainbug. How are you?
Hey there,
Hey.
Joe.
How y'all doing?
Doing all right.
Doing good.
Good,
So
good.
you saw a UFO crash? Is that what I'm understanding?
Well, yeah. I didn't realize what it was at first. It just looked like, when the space shuttle came through and crashed through the atmosphere, just big long tail, molten metal just flying off of it. I thought it was this asteroid that killed the dinosaurs. I was expecting, it's the end of the world here. This thing was so big, and it took up the whole windshield, if you would, for perspective reasons. The tail was just, I couldn't tell really how far away I was from it at first. I'd probably say 10, 15 miles, but it was huge, and I just kind of almost braced for impact. I just thought, this is the end of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And it lasted about a good minute or so going through the air, and then no big thud, no tsunamis or anything like that. Of course, I was in Indiana or Ohio.
You were in Indiana or Ohio? You traveling?
I was traveling coming from North Carolina to Indiana to visit my girlfriend, and it was probably about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was right on the Indiana-Ohio border in Ohio, headed north, and just mesmerizing. And then
how long ago
I traveled for another 10. I'm sorry.
How long ago was it?
It's summer of 1996.
Oh, it's been a minute. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a few minutes.
I asked because I recently read an article back in I think it was mid-October, that a Russian satellite crashed or it failed and streaked across the sky and was seen across the Midwest. It's just been a couple of weeks ago, though, so I was wondering if it was something related, but it may be a related phenomenon, though. I know satellites crash all the time, but there's some talk in your information here about salvaging the UFO. Is there something? Is this the same circumstance?
And if I could just real quick, what year was that?
That was 1996.
Okay.
Now, as I continued driving, all of a sudden this Hershey kiss-shaped object, if you put your thumbs together and your index fingers together, it makes this Hershey-shaped kiss. And there's a little dimple at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
It was that exact shape, and it was red, orange, and yellow, just circling, all just swirling within that shape. Nothing outside the lines or anything. Everything stayed within that shape. And then, I drove for like 10, 15 minutes. When it first appeared, it was like at my 11 o'clock position. And then as I drove for about 10, 15 minutes, I got to my 9 o'clock position, and I was 1,000 feet from it. I mean, there was a cornfield and then trees, like a forest. And I pulled my car over, parked the car, and got out and watched this. And the thing had to have been at least 1,000 feet wide, 1,000 feet tall, and about 1,000 feet away from me. I like to keep everything in thousands. But, and I got out and I watched this for 30 minutes, easy. And you could just, like I said, just swirling red, yellow, and it was just 50 feet above the ground, just I almost wanted to just run across the cornfield and say, take me.
Right.
I mean, at that point, I was like, okay, this is an extraterrestrial craft. And by the way, I should have prefaced this. I came from a strict Christian family. We believed that the entire universe was created just for us little earthlings, and Christianity, Jesus is Lord and Savior of all, and nothing else exists except us. And I went to church 5 times a week. I did not believe in stuff like this until that night. And I know what I saw. It was right there. It was huge. And then I was like, well, I'm going to watch this thing till it zigzags out into outer space, because that's what they do, right? I mean, everybody knows that.
Right.
But it didn't. It just, all of a sudden, it looked like, well, not all of a sudden, but it took about a minute or two, and it looked like someone took a black curtain and just from left to right, just slowly covered the craft. Just one side to the other, just slowly started disappearing. And I was just like, whoa, okay. All right, so I get back in my car, and I'm driving with a renewed, energy. And I get to my girlfriend's house like, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I just, go to bed. Didn't think about it for that day or whatever. And then we're sitting at the breakfast table the next morning, and my girlfriend's father's, reading the paper, and we're sitting there, and it just all came back to me, just boom. And I was like, holy shit, I almost jumped out of my chair. It's like, you guys aren't going to believe what I saw, blah, blah, blah. And I just explained what I saw. Her father looked at me, kind of folded the paper around, turned around and showed me the front page. It showed over 300 UFO sightings over this area last night, blah, blah, blah. So it made the news.
Do you know why?
I wasn't the only one that saw it. What's that?
Do you know why? There's a meteor
Do I know
shower,
why what?
and that there were so many of those sightings. There was actually a meteor shower in 1996. And the reason why I tried to clarified you on the... Yeah, there's a meteor shower.
Meteor shower every year. There's a meteor shower every year. And, but no, this was not a meteor shower. I stood...
What made you feel it was extraterrestrial, though? I mean,
because it was bigger than any blimp. First of all, the Hershey-shaped kiss, and it looked like a perfect. Like, I'm sorry to steal the title of the show, but it looked like a perfect fire in the sky.
All right.
And,
so how did you determine the size? How did you determine the size of the object? What did you use to get perspective on how big it really was?
Like I said, when I first saw it, it was like at 11 o'clock position, almost right in front of me, just off to my left. And then I drove for 10, 15 minutes before it got to my 9 o'clock position, and then I was 1,000 feet away from it.
So my point is, what I'm trying to get at is, Ohio and Indiana in that area is pretty flat. There's not a lot of ways to get good perspective, and without perspective, especially at night. So that's why I'm asking, what did you use to give you some sort of indication of how big this was? And how close it was? I mean, there had to have been something on the horizon that you knew the height of to give you some sort of estimate. Otherwise, the estimates...
I already told you that. There was this cornfield that had been... It was already down as far... it was already taken down. And then there was this forest. Not necessarily a forest, but, a big group of trees. And it was right above the tree line. And like I said, watching it for 15, 20 minutes as I was driving, get closer and closer and closer till it came to my 9 o'clock position. And then it's right there. you can see how fast they're coming up on the thing. And it was just right above the tree. I mean, it wasn't 50 feet off the ground, and red, yellow, orange, just swirling, and it was huge. Like I said, it was like 3 football stadiums all stacked on top of each other, 3 wide, 3 high, and yeah.
So you said he showed you the newspaper, and there were other sightings reported.
Yeah.
Do you know what? Did you save the newspaper for that? I mean, I would have saved the newspaper for something like that. Did you?
Yeah, well, I was 25 years old then. I'm 50 now. I wish I would have, and I did actually, several years later, filed a report with MUFON about it, and I had asked them, hey, this was in the newspaper is out of Wabash, Indiana, and I just remember that the headline was there 300 people, 300 people reported seeing a UFO,
right?
And that's why I was trying. It was years later. It was after like some kind of Peter Jennings TV show that I learned about. Oh, if you see a UFO, you can report it to MUFON. That's when I learned about that. So it was years later, and I was hoping that MUFON could help me find that article, just by referring to it, and given as late summer of '96, and this is what the headline said, and I was hoping they would be able to find that for me, and I wish I did have that article, but unfortunately I don't.
Yeah, I really wish you did too. So
yeah, because I'm looking it up online right now, and Googling for 1996 UFO sightings. I'm not really finding anything in the U.S. For 96, which is kind of interesting, because if there's as many people as you're telling us, that should come up, I think, pretty easily.
Think so. And by the way, 96, it could have been 95, could have been 97, but I'm thinking it was 96. It's just in my best recollection.
I did find a meteor strike in 99.
This is before 99.
I saw that when I was looking too, while you all were discussing how the size and perspective. I was looking at that article about 99.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, the first thing I saw, sure, that may have been a meteor, but the thing that was impressive is what I saw when I parked my car and got out and watched this fire in the sky 1,000 feet away from me. That was huge. That was stationary for 30 minutes. That was not a meteor.
Right.
But the first
how long had you been driving at that point?
Oh, that well, let's see. It's like a 12-hour drive. So I've been driving for good 9 hours.
Ooh. Yeah, that can wreak havoc on your cognition a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I keep coming back to the sizes. I mean, even with a forest, if you don't know how tall the trees are, it's hard to gauge, especially at night. Hard to gauge sizes. There wasn't a radio tower or anything else that you could have gauged the size off of.
All the trees in that area, Indiana, Ohio, they're all about the exact same size, within 10, 15 feet, which is they're usually about 40, maybe 50 feet the tallest. And this thing was right above the tree line, so that you could actually see the tree line, and this thing hovering. Did you
ever go back and look to see if there was any evidence? Like I know that some UFO sightings, when people see them in the forest, they'll go there and the grass will be dead, or or there'll be a crop circle or something like that? Nothing.
I was 3 hours away from my destination, and my only concern was, seeing my girlfriend. I wasn't going to go 3 hours out of my way to go back. At that point, and like I said, that was the first time I ever seen a UFO. Now, I've been through 2 other times going back and forth I've driven from North Carolina to Indiana probably about 100 times, and that's not an exaggeration. And
if you have more UFO stories, we definitely would love to hear them, but we might need to save them for a different call. Put that up in the barrel.
The only reason I bring up the other ones is because I did have a witness with me, which was my brother, who is a complete skeptic, and we were these red orbs just going up and down, lighting up the forest back and forth with, at speeds that you wouldn't believe. And we pulled over off the highway and we watched those things, and I saw those twice, and once my brother was with me. And so I only bring that up because I have a witness.
Yeah. What's interesting about these fireball type stories, fireballs in the sky and round lights dancing through the sky. There was a show I was watching a number of years ago, and they showed exactly that, and they adjusted the cameras so that you could actually see what it was an F-14 doing low-level maneuvering, and what you were actually seeing was the only part you could see of the aircraft was the exhaust. And when you look at it, it looks exactly like what you're describing is an aircraft or 2 aircraft doing low-level maneuvers. It could be a twin engine and a single, or 3 single jet engines working. And that seems like the most likely explanation for that.
And they land in the forest and light up miles of forest, right?
Well, so again, I don't. Without actually seeing it.
I know what you're talking about.
Right. It still seems like the most.
First of all, we're getting off the topic of the first thing I saw. Which
now, so you saw 2 UFOs, right?
Stationary for 30 minutes, and a Hershey kiss-shaped object, 1,000 feet wide, 1,000 feet tall, not moving, with red, yellow, swirling light all in it.
Right. And the shape is weird, right? Because the shape's not aerodynamic, and it's just really an odd shape to say Hershey case. So it makes me wonder if you're seeing the entire object well at all, because the shape makes no sense. You saw 2 objects, one of which apparently crashed, but there was no fireball, there was no sonic boom, there was no indication of a crash on the first one.
Like I said, the first thing I saw was this huge ball of fire streaking through the sky with a tail. I mean, miles long,
like a meteor, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I thought it was the asteroid that killed off the freaking dinosaurs.
Right. And then you get down the highway a bit further, and then you see this large. You didn't actually see the Hershey kissed object land. You just saw it in the field or in the forest.
Right. It just appeared.
And there were no other motorists.
11 o'clock position. Huh?
And there were no other motorists.
Was that?
There were no other motorists.
I was on a rural highway. It was a windy rural highway that just goes right up north of the border of Ohio and Indiana. There were no other cars, and it was early in the morning, in the middle of the week, and
so where were all these people you say reported it to the news? Where were all these people that reported? Where were all the people that, if you're out in the middle of nowhere and windy country roads in the middle of farmland, how did you get thousands of people reporting it?
Oh, well, first of all, it was hundreds.
Okay.
And
my apologies.
second of all, it was in the newspaper the day later that said that over 300 people witnessed a UFO, and this thing was so big. I'm surprised it was only 300 people, even in a rural area.
Right, because I mean, at 1,000 feet high, you're 3 hours from your destination. What was your destination again? I'm sorry.
No. All right. So you're misconstruing what I said.
Okay.
It was 50 feet. It was 50 feet high, and it was 1,000 feet. It was 50 feet off the ground.
Right.
And it was 1,000 feet wide by about 1,000 feet tall. The thing was huge.
Right. At 1,000 feet tall.
And it was stationary for 30 minutes.
Right.
1,050 feet up
tall,
in the air.
1,000 feet wide. It was almost like a triangle, except the bottom corners were rounded. Now the top was almost like a perfect point. The right and left were kind of rounded like a Hershey's Kiss, and then it had a little dimple at the bottom. And that's the only thing that made it different from a Hershey's Kiss shape, was that it had a little dimple at the bottom. But it was easy 1,000 feet wide and 1,000 feet tall, red, yellow, orange, swirling light. Just like I said, it's like a perfect camp. It was like a perfect campfire in the sky, and only 50 feet off the ground, not 1,000.
This part. So not this. You said this was 9 hours into your trip that you saw this. When you saw the light streaking across the sky, was it immediately before that, or how long?
The big ball of burning flame that was streaking through the sky was like 20 minutes before I saw the Hershey Kiss shape.
Right. So at 1,000 feet tall, that should be seen from about 35 to 40 miles away, and you were 2 hours away from your destination. So what was your destination a major city?
Well, my destination, what?
Was your destination a major city?
No, it's a very, very small town, Wabash, Indiana.
Okay.
I'd be surprised if there's 20,000 people there. But that was 2-3 hours drive from where I was.
Well,
but it was in that paper.
I hate to cut things off when it's starting to get starting to parse it apart, but we got we've got a few callers waiting still, so I want to make sure
moving on. I got you.
Yeah, but we would love for you to call back in with your other UFO stories, because this is interesting to me. I like looking into these and digging into these. Jim does too. We like to investigate these kind of sightings, because these are, unlike some of the claims that we deal with, these are things that we can actually dig into and see newspaper reports, satellite crashes. We can look at any kind of aerial phenomenon and try to figure out what it was that you saw. That maybe something more natural. I get that you believe that it was a UFO, and that's understandable. But we want to try to overturn all the stones.
By definition, it was a UFO.
Right.
Now,
right.
Extraterrestrial. If it wasn't extraterrestrial, boy, we got some stuff that you guys won't believe that we made. This thing. And keep in mind. I can go back and we can talk about Sumerian texts and the origins of humans if you want, but I know you got a show to keep going. But keep in mind, I grew up strict Christian, didn't believe in any of this stuff until that night. It changed my life.
Yeah, that sounds like it had a big impact on it. It sounds like you feel like your memory of it's pretty clear and everything. So. Of the event.
It's totally clear. I wasn't drinking. I didn't even smoke pot back then. But my parents, my family, they think I'm crazy until now. All of a sudden, the stuff is getting released in the news, and they're starting to believe me now. So
some of the stuff that's been.
Yeah, I've lost friends and family over this sighting.
Right. Okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Joe. We look forward to hearing from you again in the future. Okay. You have a nice night.
Absolutely. You too. Have a great show.
All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, 300 people should still have made. I mean,
it should have been
made
national
something.
news or some kind. Yeah, at least regional. And this isn't too far from my area where I think I would have heard about it on the news. 1996, though, I was a bit young. But the first part of it definitely sounded like what you see when you see a meteor or a meteor shower.
Right. And like I said, the Hershey-shaped kiss, I mean, I think that the best possible spaceships that don't have to enter atmosphere are going to be around, just because when you need to change directions, it's easier to shift an engine over the surface of the craft to the new to get you on the new vector than it is to turn the entire craft. It's one of the problems I have with like Battlestar Galactica and some of these others. You turn a ship with a big long spine, you put a lot of stress on it. And yeah, and that just doesn't make any sense to me.
Are you kidding me?
Pardon?
Hello? Is that Ethan? Oh, anyway.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that, but
yeah.
If anybody out there has a UFO sighting that they want to talk about, give us a call. The number's right down there. We love to talk about. It doesn't have to be UFOs though. You've had a ghostly encounter, say you saw a spirit, you played with a Ouija board and things happened, anything like that. We want to talk to you about it. We want to hear those claims and understand it. Or if you have a claim about experience with a god or with an angel or anything like that, please give us a call. We are here to listen.